What's good, YouTube fam? It's your boy Tony, aka the Sender of Chaos and Controversy, and today I'm going to talk about the misconceptions of dating outside your race. And why am I talking about this now? Well, as of recent, I've seen a lot of discussions put on the table as far as those who approved or disapproved of those that were dating within their race or outside their race and all the controversy that surrounded that topic. Okay. And some of the familiar points to be made was you either had those that coming from the white side, you had the parents who disapproved of their daughters dating anyone who was black. From the black side of the perspective, you always had the argument of the black females disapproving of the brothers dating a Becky or a Karen or whatever the case may be. Okay, so you see where the balance lies in the disapproval area. Now, coming from my standpoint, based on the fact that I have dated a variety of women. Okay, I have dated black and Puerto Rican, Guyanese, Haitian, and white, Portuguese, Irish, whatever, Jewish, what have you. I will say this, and this is based on my experience. This isn't to generalize or make a blanket statement. It's to show that based on some of the arguments that I've heard, it's not true across the board. Yes, there's validation in some aspects. I will give you that, but to make a generalized statement to say this goes for all, that's not true. Okay? I will say based on my experiences when dating women who are black or Puerto Rican, I've had no bad experiences. Partly in looking at it in retrospect, the women that I dated at the time that I dated them, they were older than I was. I never was accepted as far as dating those within my age group simply because of their standards. Their standards being that they needed to date someone who was athletic, that was a jock, or was into gang banging, or ran the streets, or this, that, and everything else. I didn't fit that mold. I was the in betweener. Yes, I did play sports, but I also got good grades. I played video games and collected comic books and was into drawing and all that other stuff. So where I was good enough to be a friend, but I wasn't good enough to date. You know, um, but when I got to my later teens, I was dating women that were 28, 30, 32, 42, so on and so forth. And that was quite the experience, to say the least. Um, but when I got to where I was dating females who were white, um, I met some of which were on who was my coworkers. Um, I can also say when I was in college too. Um, but pretty much it was either when I was at work. Um, my kids' mothers, yes. My daughter's mother is Italian. My oldest son's mother is Jewish, and my recent son's mother, she is part German and a couple other whatever you want to add to the whole whatever. Now the comparisons. I've had women who were black that some had kids, some didn't. They didn't need a man, but if they wanted one, they could have one. And it was by choice. They worked. They never needed or wanted money from me. They weren't those type of women. Um, they had their own house. They paid their own bills. They had their own car. And they took care of their kids. They weren't the ones that, from what I saw from the perspective that I was seeing it as, they didn't care too much about child support or nothing like that. What they wanted was the fathers to be in their kids' life. That's all that was asked. That's all that I saw. That was the gist of the argument when hearing them going back and forth with their kids' fathers and stuff like that. But other than that, they maintained and held their own. Um, Very few were on any kind of public assistance, but then again, they didn't just depend on the state. These were women that were working 2 or 3 jobs. So they didn't just sit at home and collect a check. They were out there hustling. They were busting their ass while raising their kids on their own. Okay? Some went to college. Some was already in college. Some even had their own business. I mean, you know. Now, if people want to know how come those relationships didn't last long, well, again, for one, they were older than I was. Two, at some point, at one time or another, at the time when I was getting involved with them, I myself wasn't at a good place. I myself was toxic. I myself wasn't the type of person that was the role model for their children. Um, so that's why that didn't last long as far as me dating women within the black community or Puerto Rican women, so to speak. Okay. Now, upon me dating white women, there were some white women who also were independent. Some had kids as well. Some didn't need a man, but if they wanted one, they could have one. My experience is, though, that they did seek child support. I see them in the courts. Um, some, oh, and on top of that, I just want to make this point, when I did date females the women who were black or Puerto Rican, I never got cheated on. Okay, they were honest, and if they didn't want to be in a relationship, they said, "Hey, I don't want to be in a relationship no more," or me saying that, vice versa, and it was over and done with. The white women, some of the white women that I got involved with, I got cheated on. That was that was my experience. My daughter's mother cheated on me. My son's mother cheated on me. My current son's mother cheated on me. So I'm not saying this to say that all white women are a bad pick. I'm gonna just chalk it up to saying that I made bad choices in who I chose. Okay? I'm not gonna sit here and bash all white women saying that all white women are no good and they are untrustworthy and ain't worth to date. I'm just saying these are my experiences. Okay? Um, and on top of that, two of which one became an alcoholic, the other two, one passed away from a drug overdose, and the other one, the reason why I have my son now is because she's hooked on drugs. Some of the other ones that I dated, I would say they entertained the bar scene just a little more than what I would have chosen to accept, so to speak. So, and the misconception that I want to throw out there, where a lot of people have said this, if you think that a brother won't date a black woman because they have all this attitude, so to speak, or they're hard to get along, or they're argumentative and this, that, and everything else, the women that I dated, they were calm and laid back and down to earth. They weren't the stereotypes that people like to throw out there to paint a whole blanket perception, because that's not the case. Now, some of these white women that I've dated, they were loud and obnoxious. Some like to throw the N word out there like they was down with black people and they weren't. They just felt just a little too comfortable using that shit. And that was a deal breaker for me too. What else? If you think that dating a white woman means that you can get away with a lot of shit, no. Because first and foremost, you will get the cops called on you. Second of all, they will drag your ass to court. Third of all, they will embarrass the fuck out of you if at any point at any given time that they can. So thinking that these white women are pushovers, no the fuck they are not. So I just wanted to clarify some of the misconceptions that people have thrown out on the table to try to make their points known. And I'm here to say that isn't true across the board. Because based on my experiences, I could tell you otherwise. And again, I'm not here trying to paint a bad picture on white women, but I think enough negative portrayals of black women have been exploited, and that shit doesn't sit right with me. Because for me to sit idly by and remain quiet or conveniently silent, knowing damn well what I know, nah, it just didn't sit right with me. And yes, I will say that there are poor examples of black women because, as I stated before, and I've gotten the criticism and the attacks when I addressed the poor elements or the poor representation of black women that have been exploited. And I said that isn't fair because there are black women that are college graduates, that go to nursing school, that are on the police force, that are judges, that are prosecutors, that are lawyers, that are EMTs, that are teachers, have their own businesses, that are independent but with success. And they do it with such class. That are real estate agents, work for the IRS. I mean, but then the only ones that you only hear of are the ones that are out here twerking or out here half naked or out here being thoughts or this and that, thoughts or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But that's not as far as the spectrum goes. And I'm getting tired of just only the negatives being painted when it comes to us, and especially the black women. And not all black women are trying to put black men down. There are black women that are voicing against some of these black women that are a poor representation of them, calling them out. But they don't get the credit. They don't get acknowledged. They don't get recognized. And it's the same thing to be said, like, from where I stand. Me as a black man, even though I am biracial, but as far as the representation of being melanated goes, you don't see me out here advocating or justifying or glorifying or holding these poor examples of men in the black community up on a pedestal to be idolized, that are out here gangbanging, that are out here disrespecting women, beating women, raping women, shooting up their community, having collateral damage, which 9 times out of 10 result in kids dying, out here robbing, stealing, dealing drugs. You don't see me glorifying them or making excuses for them. And I also know that they are a representation of me. Despite how you might have those like a Brandon Tatum who make blatant statements to say that all black people are like this. And now he'll just throw in there now to just kind of like band-aid the situation just to give an excuse as to continue on with his rhetoric. Oh, I know all black people. Like he'll say just like, yeah, I know I gotta say it. But you don't say it being sincere. You don't come from a place of being genuine. Me, on the other hand, I do my best to try to make the comparisons and balance the scales as best as I can when addressing this. Because it's not easy and it's not as simplified as many people may think, that when you go to address these topics that you can just cover all bases and make the comparisons equally and evenly. Sometimes you think it is to be understood, but unfortunately, again, people listen to respond and react. People don't listen to take the time out to hear what is being said, to understand what is being said. Because they're looking for a reason to want to criticize and looking for a reason to want to attack you and shit like that, instead of understanding the point that is being made. Like I said, there is a difference between constructive criticism and destructive criticism. Constructive criticism is where you're pointing out the wrongs with the intent to build somebody up so they can understand and recognize their flaws, their mistakes, so that it could be corrected. Destructive criticism is just to tear somebody down and just leave them where they are without no hope, without no encouragement. And you're just a throwaway. There is no redemption for you. That's where the destructive criticism comes from, in comparison. But that's what I got for today. It's a short video, I think. But yeah, that's what I wanted to address, the misconception of dating outside your race. And this is coming from my perspective based on my experiences. It's an interesting topic to, yes, indeed address. And I wonder and I hope that there is some feedback on this particular content in this video specifically. With that being said, leave a comment in the comment section. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Let me know what you think. And as always, y'all be safe, and you already know how I do this. Peace.